Well, hey guys, what is going on? In this video, I want to talk about how you can add 50K to your agency in the next week. So this is the same method that we use to add 50K in just a little bit over 7 days, and how you can do the same thing. Now, I'm going to come at this from a different approach because, again, I know a lot of you guys watch a lot of content, and I know that there's a lot of information out there, and this is data that we've taken from over 100 different agency owners over the past maybe 30 to 60 days. And I'm going to reveal in this video what I think are probably the 4 things that you need to do to easily add 50K to your agency in the next week. Now, I'll preface this with maybe 1 or 2 conditions. So the first condition is that you need to implement. So if you don't implement, you can't actually expect to get the result. And the second thing is you need to have a decent level of sales ability, and you need to know the full process from taking someone from initial conversation all the way to closing the deal, or you have a closer, right? So you can do both. Typically, you can't actually have a closer unless you've got a good amount of appointment volume. If you want to have more help with sales, comment sales below in all caps, and I'll send you a free sales training that is based on over 3,000 SMMA sales calls. We'll take you through how that works. So they're the 2 conditions. You need to know how to implement properly, and you need to be good at sales. If you have those 2 conditions in place, you should be pretty good. So I'm going to take you guys through exactly how to do this. Now, the 3 concepts we're going to cover are finding leverage, niche selection, acquisition, automation of acquisition, crafting your message, and what I call the war by numbers approach. And I'll explain what that means as we go through the video. So with that in mind, let's jump into the training. Okay, so here we go, how to add 50K to your agency in the next week. Now, the first thing is to find leverage. Now, I've been playing this game. It's called Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth. And what this game is about is, if you've ever played Age of Empires before, or you've ever played a game which is about resource collection and allocation and then building an army, really what the game is about is how you can find leverage as quickly as possible, okay? So when it comes to that particular game, the ways that you find leverage are you look at your advantages. So what are your natural advantages as a citizen, as a sort of a race, or natural advantages as an army? So this is as it relates to the game. It also relates to like what kind of assets or what kind of weapons you have at your disposal. It also has other elements like how quickly you can build structures, how quickly you can create soldiers, all those types of things. So it's a really interesting game because it helps you practice, what is the quickest way to find leverage. Now, the quickest way to find leverage in your agency is niche selection. Now, I know that there's a lot of talk about niche, but I want to explain why niche selection is the best way to start, to add as much revenue as possible. So the typical types of niches that you want to target traditionally are niches that have high demand, high funding capacity, so they've got money to spend on your services, but also they, in addition to those things, they also have low supply of providers, okay? So it really comes down to not just your typical things, but it also comes down to demand and supply. So what is the demand of that market for your services, but what is the supply of providers? So one niche that is sort of like the magical niche that you can always tap into is real estate. And the reason that real estate is so good is because there's so much demand. Now, there's this concept called, I guess you'd call it like market life cycles. So in every life cycle of a market, there are new entrants to that market coming in every single day. So every single day, there are, say, 100 new real estate agents who've just completed their certificate in the United States. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but you need to understand that every day there's new people coming into the market. There are also new agency owners coming into the market, into the real estate market, right? So what you've got to try and do is figure out how can I tap into the market life cycle, right? So don't think that markets are static. Markets are constantly changing. And so the markets that will be available to you in a year's time will be very different to markets that are available to you in, next week. So think about the market cycle. But I'll also mention that mindset is a big factor at play, because I know, and this is, I'm just going to add another caveat here. The caveat here is that if you're the guy who's scared of taking sales calls and you're just procrastinating picking a niche, that is not being strategic. That is just being fearful. So you need to learn to overcome your fears to get onto sales calls and actually close these clients. And again, if you need help with sales and if you need help with the mindset around sales, just comment in caps, all caps, sales below, and I'll take you through how that works. But the fact is, if you do have a good mindset, then you need to find a good market. Now, real estate is a pretty perennial market that you can tap into. But if you don't want to tap into real estate, there's a whole bunch of other markets that you can tap into. Now, a lot of them are pretty well untapped. There's not a lot of competition. The niches you want to avoid, in my opinion, are niches like e-com, chiropractor, dental, all the typical niches that people do. You want to find different types of niches. Now, I'm going to reveal to you guys a list of 400 niches that you can tap into. And if you want that list of 400 niches, comment niches in all caps below this video. So an easy way is to find a different and unique niche. Now, you also need to understand what the total addressable market of that niche is. So one niche that I know works very well is flooring. So flooring, where it's like they do carpets, they do lino, they do flooring for commercial or residential companies. That is an amazing niche that you can tap into that not many people are doing. But obviously now that I've said it, a few people are going to try it. But it is a good niche. We've tested it. We've run ads behind it. It works. So find a niche that is untapped. That is the first thing. Or find a perennial niche like real estate or solar, which is so big that it can actually handle the demand and supply dynamic. Okay. So the first thing is the niche. Now, it goes back to what is called the 41, 39, 20 rule. Now, what this rule is basically 41% of the success of your campaign, of your efforts to get clients in this niche, is dependent on the niche. Okay. 39% is going to be dependent on your offer. And then 20% is going to be dependent on your branding and messaging and your copy. Okay. So if you have the niche right, that's most of the battle. If you then have your offer right, it's almost as important as your niche, but not as important. And then the last thing is obviously the last 20% is your message and your ad copy. So that's the first thing you want to cover to add 50K in your agency in the next week. So once you got that sorted, the next step you want to look at is your acquisition. Okay. Now, the thing with acquisition is that everything works, right? So everything works with acquisition. It depends, though, to what degree that the acquisition works, okay? So I'll say it again. Everything works. It just depends to what degree. So the way that I like to look at this is there's 4 elements that you need to think about when you're doing your acquisition. So the first element is obviously the volume. So what kind of volume do you need to do in order to get the results that you want from your acquisition? Okay. Then the next one is your message and offer. So and effectively your offer is your message, because they don't know your offer unless you've presented it through your message. So the second component is the message and then the offer. Now, after the message and the offer, it's the platform. So what platform you reach out to your customer on. And then the last message is the lead source. The last element is the lead source. So if you are struggling with your acquisition, it's either you're not doing enough volume, you don't have the right offer presentation through your message, you don't have the right platform you're reaching out to the market on, or you're sourcing those leads from a bad source. So for instance, if you all are buying the same lead list from the same provider, it's not going to work because you're all tapping into the same list. So your list is super, super important. And this goes back to like traditional copywriting stuff, where it's like they talk about the importance of having a really high quality list that you can actually reach out to. Let me have a sip of coffee. So everything works: emails, social DMs, content, text, calls, ads. There's other methods that we use as well, but everything works, right? So you've just got to tap into the right combination of volume, message, platform, and lead source. So that's how that works. Okay, so the next thing is, once you've defined your numbers, now I'm going to just jump right back down to the bottom here and just unpack this a little bit. I call this the war by numbers approach. So a big part of everything that I do is I like to view things from a war perspective. So if I was in a war, how would I go about doing this? Now, I love this concept because it's so solution oriented, and it also gets you to think in a solution oriented way. Now, what this is you've got to understand that no matter what issue you're facing, or what sort of outreach you're trying to tap into, or what sort of goal you've got, there is the magic number that will get you to your goal, right? So if you want to hit 50K, you need to close 10 clients at 5K for a package, right? 10 clients for 5K. Now, if you have a close rate of 25%, you need to set 40 appointments. Then you need to factor in the show rate. If you have a show rate of 75%, you then need to increase the number of appointments from 40 all the way to 53. Now, if you have a close rate of 25%, a show rate of 75%, you need 53 appointments. Now, then you've got to figure out, to get 53 appointments, how many seeds do I need to plant? Okay, so this is going back to the outreach and the acquisition, and it goes to volume. How many seeds do I need to plant? Now, a seed could be ad spend, it could be number of outreaches, and then also number of follow-ups to the outreach, right? How many seeds do I need to plant? If I need 53 meetings, I might need to reach out to 5,000 people in the month. And that's about a 1% booking rate, okay? Now, the thing is, people might say, well, hey, you know what? I can get people for like a 10% booking rate, and that's great for them. But the thing is, if you want quick results and you need volume, you need to go hard with the volume piece, okay? And you've also got to make sure that all of these other components are dialed in as well. So you got to understand that there is the magic number, and the magic number could be 5,000 outreaches if you have a good message, if you have the right platform, and your list of leads that you've got on that platform are solid, okay? So remember, there is a magic number that will get you to your goal. And that's understanding reverse engineering. You've just got to reverse engineer the numbers, okay? And you've also got to have the mindset of a savage. Now, what this means is you're not a baby, you do the work, but you also know that it's going to pay off. You know that if I reach out to 5,000 people, I'm going to get 50K. So then you've got to figure out, how can I reach 5,000 people effectively with the constraints that I have in my business? So if you have, and this goes back to resource allocation, and right back to the story that I was telling at the start with the game that I was talking about. If you have $3,000 in the bank and you don't have a job, you've got 40 hours, you've got unlimited hours, then you obviously want to spend more time on doing the work yourself. But then you can leverage, using the concept of leverage, you can leverage, for instance, a commission-only appointment setter. You can then leverage your time. you can leverage the fact that you've got a little bit of ad spend. Now, people who've never tried ads before need to realize that like ads is like the cheat code. Like as soon as you get ads running, it's like magic. So you need to understand those components and then go through the process with a war by numbers approach. Like you can do it. And then you've just got to implement. Like you've got to hop on calls, you've got to do the triage calls, appointment setting calls, and then, get better and better. The more offers you present, the more likely you'll be able to add that 50K. So it all comes back to knowing your numbers and understanding what your magic number is. So let's go to the automation piece here. So if you look at the constraints of your business, and I always ask this to clients, if I'm like wanting to know where they're at, I always ask them, what's your cash on hand? What's the cash in the business? How much time have you got? How many clients have you got? What's your expected revenue on an MRR basis for this month? And then I give them advice based on that criteria. Now, if your criteria is let's just say $3,000 in the bank, in the business bank account, you've got unlimited time, I would spend maybe $1,000 on ads, and then I would try and do as much manual stuff as I can, and I'd probably try and hire a virtual assistant, appointment setter to do the work for you. Then it goes back to, how can I close 50K at a 25% close rate with a 75% show rate with 53 book calls on the calendar? If you can get all those things together, you will be able to add 50K to your agency in the next week, exactly like we did. So thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, let me know. But hopefully this gives you motivation and an idea of how to think about this clearly so that you can actually ultimately get the result that you want. Well, thanks for watching, guys. Speak to you soon. Cheers.